Hello and welcome along to Mondo Chelloveck Movies. My name is John and this video is going to be my horror collection. Now when I say horror collection, this can't be all of my horror collection because I've got loads of titles here. I've got them all over the place. So I've laid my titles out on the shelves. They've sort of fallen into certain brackets. I've got 88 films, got Arrow, got 4Ks. Now when I get shelf 2 on the go, which is coming up quite soon, actually sooner than what I thought, a short story about shelf 2 is that this wall here, which has some furniture on, the furniture isn't sort of fixed on the wall, so I can pull it out the way. I can paint that side of the wall. I can then put the shelf up in situ. I can actually put the stuff onto the shelf, and I could even put the stuff back in front of it just for now, but the stuff is going to be sold. So I thought I would have to actually get rid of the whole lot before I put the shelves up, but from doing that I can actually do it and have them both there with the things going to go out the front of it, if that makes sense. So I'm going to plow on with that. I'm off this week actually on holiday, so I'm going to make sure that I get this wall painted. So I'm hoping to complete that this week. So I had to run this idea because this is my bright idea that I come up with yesterday at work, and I thought, hey, I wonder if I can do this a lot quicker than I thought, because yes, we've got to paint all this room. The cupboards have got to be painted. Got a big load of cupboards over there which have to be painted with sort of this whole melamine paint, which we're going to paint in grey. We've got this sort of white stuff going over there, I think. You'll see it all when it's finished, and I had to run it past the Debs. You remember the Debs, don't you?
Take care.
Oh my God.
What?
So I had to make it very appealing, so I said to the Debs, if I do this now, I can get all the wood from downstairs, I can get it up here, I can get this stuff sold, I can get this room painted quicker, and everyone's happy. And I get all this, because I've got loads of ones building up in the corner over there, which is getting on my nerves, and they need to be on shelving actually. So this is all going to happen, and like I say, it's going to move quite quickly now. When I had this brain sort of wave yesterday about doing it this way around, getting that wall finished and then carrying on with that. Of course, the Deb said it was, I know you'll do that wall and then you forget all about it. And I said, well, I don't know where you get that one from, but no, I'm definitely going to keep on with this one, because that's going to be the hardest bit to do, and then I can move on with other jobs that I've got to do. Excuse me for video bombing my own video, but I'm just showing you the progress on my shelf 2. Now, as you can see, everything from the shelf from the wall is now here. So I'm sitting sort of scrunched up next to the bed. So I'm just going to show you a little bit about what's going on there, over there. So what is happening here, I've just laid the beams on there. So this is obviously the 3 beams I'm going to have, and there's about a 6-foot span. So I'm just about to do the second coat on there. And that means that you'll be able to sort of get an idea of what's to come there. It's about, like I say, about a 6-foot span. You need 3 beams there, and then obviously the ones that go over the top of them, across them, they'll be put on. So that's going to get fitted hopefully this week. So back to the video. So when these shelves go up, this format on the shelf is going to change. What I do think I'm going to do is, I'm going to take my Arrow collection, which is up there, and I'm going to put all of the Arrow collection, instead of just doing this with it, I'm going to start to put it all the way along there. For these 2 here, I'm going to put this all the way along there and do it that way. Then I'm going to do 88 films there, and I don't know where I'm going to go from there. I might do horror as well. So this is kind of, this block here is going to be all cult and horror. Now the 4Ks, which are up here at the moment, I think they are going to go across the shelf too. And also I think that shelf 2 might be a one that I'm going to fill up with only Blu-rays, not to put any special editions. Special editions will go down here as they are now, and this bit here is going to be like for overspills, as well as I would imagine there'll be some overspills on shelf 2, but that's still to be decided in my mind yet. I mean, these are the things that keep me up at night, you know. So anyway, so I thought as a sort of farewell to shelf 1, or farewell to a certain section in shelf 1, I would show you my horror collection, which I have, which isn't my sort of 88 or Arrows, and it's not my sort of horror, really bad horror stuff. This is more like your mainstream horror, if you like it. And to be honest, I haven't really looked at this set for quite a while, so I don't really know exactly what I've got in there. So when I go through it, I might get a few things that I think, really, I put that in the horror section, or ones that I think, oh, I thought I would have had this one in there. So anyway, I'm going to go through them, and I'm going to do it like quite quick. I'll stop on a few ones, because obviously if I show ones like The Exorcist, it doesn't really need me to talk too much about The Exorcist, so I'll show you certain ones like that you know all about. and I'll go through them quite quickly, hopefully, and you're not here for too long. I don't really want to put this into 2 videos. I like to just get it into 1. So I'm going to take a chunk off, just go through it, and try and see how quick I can go through them, and then you're going to see. And it also would be quite good for me to look back on, because I remember what I had in this certain section, because this section will probably get broken up and it'll probably go into another part or whatever, or things will get added to it. I might put more horror into it, more horror from like the US horror. It remains to be seen. So anyway, let's see what I've got in my horror collection. So some of the titles in this section you might think, what, horror? I've put them in here. Some of them might not be exactly what you would class as horror, but this is where I've found a place in at the moment. I might some of these might navigate in a certain other genres or other parts of the shelves. So first up is the Alien Anthology. This has 4 movies in it. I do like the first and second one, of course, absolutely brilliant, although I've got the first one in 4K. Third one, not so keen on it, but I do need to revisit it again. Fourth one, well, I just think that was just an absolute joke, really, and it didn't do anything for me. It should have done a lot more for me, but it didn't. Alien Anthology. Next up is A Quiet Place. We watched this and had a great time with it. We've got Quiet Place 2 on Sky Movies, but haven't looked at it yet. Then The Addams Family. Is it? Yes, it's just The Addams Family. I got this from cheap from HMV. Checked it out. Got a really good picture quality on it. And also, we used to watch this with my son when he was little all the time. And I don't want to get the other one, actually. If they want 4K, I'll definitely get the 4K, because I'll really laugh, actually. That's The Addams Family. Next is Apollo 18. I got this. It was dirt cheap somewhere, probably CX, and I haven't watched it yet. I've heard decent things about it, but it's another one that you think, right, it'll be on the shelves, I'll get round to it eventually, but haven't got round to it yet. That's Apollo 18. Then American Mary. Now this is a really good movie. Actually, I got this dirt cheap as well. It was on the shelves forever, and I decided to watch it, and I had an excellent time with it. It's ultra violent, and it has a really good performance in from the lead character here. So I highly recommend it if you want your go. That's American Mary. Next up is Attack of the Werewolves. This has a brilliant lenticular cover. I think this movie is, I'm going to say, Spanish. I'm not too sure exactly which country it comes from, but I know it's dubbed or it's in subtitles. I did remember, I have watched it, and I think it's like a comedy, and I did think it was quite good, but I can't remember any more than sort of a little few scenes from it, but I do need to revisit that. That's Attack of the Werewolves. Next up is from CX, is The Autopsy of Jane Doe. I got this, and Deborah said she wanted to watch it. It's quite high up on the I need to watch it list. That's The Autopsy of Jane Doe. Next is the Basket Case Trilogy. Now, I did used to have this on Steelbook. Now, when I went and bought my drums, which were £2,000, I did have to sell quite a lot of stuff around the house, and some of the Blu-rays that I had, and this was a Steelbook, and I sold that, and I did sell a few things that I didn't miss, and I did sell a few things that I did miss, but this was just easily bought as a standard edition from Second Sight, I believe, and yeah, I think the first one's absolutely brilliant, the second one's good, the third one's okay, so in all as a trilogy, I think they're quite a good watch. That's a Basket Case Trilogy. Next is American Horror Story Season 1 and 2. I got this from CX, it was dead cheap. I did watch some of the other ones on TV and I really enjoyed them, and I just got this to see if I would enjoy them. I watched the first one, which I thought was quite good. I haven't watched the second one, I don't think. And some of them that I think are really good and some I think are really bad. So the first and second one, I haven't watched the second one. First one is pretty good. This is the third one. This is another CX cheapo, and I haven't watched this one actually because I haven't watched the second one. So I know you don't need to watch them before you watch the other ones, but I saw it when I saw it cheap. I thought, yeah, I'll get this one. The same being going for American Horror Story 4, which is Freak Show, which is my favourite one actually. I thought this was absolutely brilliant. I watched it. It's a little bit too many episodes actually. Could have done with being maybe about 3 or 4 episodes shorter, but all in all I thought it was a really good one, and the whole thing about the Freak Show is quite a good spin, and obviously if you've seen the movie Freaks, you will know it borrows a lot of stuff from there. I think it's intentionally borrowed as well, like homage as well. So that's American Horror Story Freak Show. Next is American Horror Story Hotel. Now this one is, I got this because Lady Gaga's in it, and I remember seeing it on the TV and I didn't really much care for it, but because I've suddenly got into Lady Gaga being quite a good actress, I thought, right, I'm going to have to get this one. I have watched quite a few episodes and I did really enjoy it. I fell out of sort of watching it. I will need to get back to this, but I think that the whole thing is quite good, quite gothic. It's got some great music in it as well. So that's American Horror Story Hotel. Next up is Barbarian Sound Studio. Now I heard great things about this movie. I haven't watched it yet. It's one of those ones where I think it's about this. It remains, well, it's not a giallo, but it's got giallo flavours to it. I think this fella goes into recording this stuff for horror movies, and it's just things that happen in that. I think it's very psychological. I think, although it's got great reviews, I just haven't watched it yet. So that's Barbarian Sound Studio. Next is Black Sheep. This is such a funny movie. I got this cheap. A lot of these are just cheap from CX. I got this one. I just had such a good time. It's like these sort of zombie sheeps. You'll have, if you like just daft films with loads of gore in it, I think you get a really good time in this movie. So that's Black Sheep. Next up is The Blair Witch Project. I really enjoyed this one. I went to see it at the cinema. That was before anybody knew about this movie, but I think these days hasn't got the punch that it did have. I do have the Blair Witch, the other one, the sort of like follow on from it, not Blair Witch 2, which I thought was abysmal. But I haven't, I'm thinking, where is it? Because it's not in this pile. So I don't know where it actually is, but I'll have to have a much about for that one. That's funny when you get these things on the shelves and things kind of disappear. So that's the Blair Witch Project. Maybe it's to do with the Blair Witch Project. Next is the Blob, or as we say in, as Geordie say in Newcastle, the Blurb. And this one is, it's a great movie actually, and we got this because Deborah wanted to see it actually, and it was quite cheap. I didn't get the Criterion because I didn't know if I'd like it. To be honest, it's that much of a good film that I would like to see on a Criterion, although this one looks really nice. And fun fact, the blob on here, which you can see kind of there, it's this petroleum jelly sort of swarfiga lump, which is featured in the movie. The blob still exists to this day. This film was shot probably 50 years ago, and there is a box with this blob still in it, because when they made it, they must have put some chemicals into it which made it sort of, that could never be destroyed. So that's quite an interesting fact for it. So that's the Blob. Next up is a great movie, Bone Tomahawk. This is, if you want brutal, mind you've got to sit through quite a lot of action, well, non-action to get to it. This is such a violent film. I knew it was meant to be violent, but I didn't know how violent it would be. So yes, the sort of last, I don't know, half an hour is like something you would never ever expect in a mainstream movie. So that's Bone Tomahawk. Next up is a real classic, Bubba Hotep, and this stars Bruce Campbell, and it's just an absolute gem. It's made by the same guy who made Phantasm, and you can tell mine because I don't know what it is about the man who made Phantasm, Don Cascarelli I think it's called. He just has these things with labyrinths. I don't know what it is, but he likes that corridor element, and this is full of that as well. But if you want to see Bruce Campbell, and blanking on names, my God. If you want to see Bruce Campbell, who's playing an elderly Elvis in a care home, then this is your movie. It's so funny and so unique as well. So that's Bubba Hotep. Next is Birkenhair. Now this is a one that I picked up from Poundland, I would imagine, and I thought that this would be utter rubbish, but I thought, I do like the people in this, and I thought it's got to have something about it if you've got these characters in it or these actors in it. So on the extras I found out, and that's why I'm keeping this movie actually, because I think on reflection, it's not a bad movie actually. I like the way it was told. I like the story of it. This one of the characters, either Burke or Hare, his skeleton was donated to science, medical science, and his skeleton is still somewhere. It's still used in like, you know, for people who study physiology and stuff like that. I can't even say it.
Where's me ladders?
Physiology and things like that. His skeleton is used in that thing. So wow, he was robbing graves, and his skeleton has now become that thing that he was actually doing. So as a really weird twist of fate. So that's Birkenhair. Next up is Carry On Screaming. This is my favourite Carry On film, apart from Carry On Camping, which I think is absolutely so funny. This is great. So watch this on the TV. The funny thing is about Carry On Screaming, you used to hardly see it on the TV, even when it was used to show things of Carry On films. This is the one that never seemed to get in the telly that much. But when I saw it on Blu-ray, I knew I had to get it. Funny enough, I haven't watched it since I've got it, but I do think this is, for me, such a great movie, and it does come across slightly like a Hammer movie as well. So that's Carry On Screaming. Great cast, obviously. Next up is The City of the Lost Children, filmed by Junette and Caro. I always thought it was somebody else who'd done this, actually. I don't know why, but I think this is the same fellow who did Delicatessen. That's another great movie, that. And this visually, this looks absolutely spectacular. And it's new to Blu-ray, director approved. I know I got this quite a long time ago, actually. And it's one of those ones where it's it's hard to describe, but it's really a visual treat, and it's quirky and odd. I think it's French as well, and it's just a movie that if you ever see it, do pick it up. You're in for a good time with this visually spectacular movie that tells a very strange story about this city of lost children. Believe it or not, that is the premise of the movie. Although I can't really describe it in any clearer terms than that. So that's the City of the Lost Children. Next up is Cormans World. Now this is a great documentary. I got this ultra cheap from CX. This tells you the story of the director Roger Corman. Now Roger Corman is famous for producing and directing all the sort of low budget movies from the 70s and sort of up until now. Piranha, Death Race 2000. He was there with all of these things. Now the movie that I want to get my hands on at this point is Death Race 2000 from 1975. Of course, at the moment it's locked up in that weird way that Blu-rays sometimes get, where you've got to pay a couple of £100 to see something or buy something that was usually out there for £10. Rights issues, how many times have we heard that? So, but this is a great documentary, and it brings you sort of, if you want to know about Roger Corman and what he's all about, you do get sort of everything outlined in this documentary style movie. So that's Corman's World. Next up is The Devil's Rejects. This is definitely Rob Zombie's best movie. Rob Zombie can make some great movies, and he can also make some trash movies. This, for me, is his best effort. And I do think when he does a movie well, he does it really well. But sometimes it just don't seem to... I don't know what it is. He's a bit like Eli Roth. He can kind of just miss the mark a little bit. When he misses the mark, it makes the movie quite unwatchable. Are you listening? Halloween 2? So yes, The Devil's Rejects for me is his best movie, and I think this is an absolutely spectacular double disc as well. So that's The Devil's Rejects. The same can't be said for Three from Hell. It's alright, it's not bad, but it's not anywhere near like The Devil's Rejects. It did feature one of the last performances from Captain Spaulding, Sid Haig, so that's worth it for that reason, although he's not in there that much. So that's Three from Hell. Next up is a movie that nobody seems to talk about. It is Double Date. Now this movie here is an absolute gem of a movie. If you haven't seen it, you must get it. It's hyper violent, but it's only a 15 actually. When I look at it, it should be an 18. It's got such a good storyline, and you will be really impressed. It's like a comedy, but it's not really a comedy. But it is a comedy, but it's like a violent comedy, and it's a really watchable movie. And it's one of the ones I saw in Sky Movies, and I thought, I bet this doesn't come out in physical. But it came out, I just walked past and it was in the shelves, and I thought, yes, I'll have that. It's only about £10 as well. So highly, highly recommended, although nobody probably knows about it or talks about it. That's Double Date. Next up is Dr. Terrace, House of Horrors. This is such a classic. It's unreal. It's strange to say it's only a PG as well. Just love this movie, love everything about it. It's got Peter Cushing in. I saw this movie countless times when it was on TV when I was a kid, and just can't get enough of it. Every story down here is a winner. It's obviously a portmanteau. Tells you a few stories, and Dr. Terrace in this train telling people, reading the fortunes, I think he is. So it's just such a good movie. It's one of those ones where when you see this type of movie where it's got these 5 stories intertwined with each other, you want more, and there's plenty more out there. So that's Dr. Terrace, House of Horrors. Next up is Jewel. Now when I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, is this really a horror film? I don't think it is really a horror film. This might be one of the ones that gets moved into a different area when the shelves all get sort of sorted out for real. Now this movie here, I've got to say that it's such a great movie. It's Steven Spielberg's directorial debut. It's also a TV movie, but don't let that take anything away from it. But I've got to say that the picture quality on here is absolutely stunning. It's one of the best Blu-rays I've ever seen. And for that reason, as well as the movie is so great, the movie he made before Jaws. You've got, well, one of the movies he made before Jaws. You've got to see it. So that's Jewel. Next up is Earth versus the Flying Saucers. I love these type of movies, black and white, creature features to a certain extent, or outer space, UFOs. I just could watch these morning, noon and night. They used to be on the TV all the time in the afternoons on a Sunday. Don't obviously get them on the TV anymore, sadly. But yeah, I just think these are just so watchable, and I would urge anybody who sees these type of movies on the shelves, just pick them up. Cheaper the better, and you'll just have a really good time with them. So that's Earth versus the Flying Saucers. Next up is The Evil Dead. Now the only reason why I'm keeping this version is because it's got loads of special features on it. Over 2.5 hours of spine-tingling special features, no less. And the American 4K that I've got, although it has a slipcover on it, that's why I got it, it doesn't have any special features. So for that reason, I'm keeping it on here. So if I've got a one that had extra features on and it had a slipcase, maybe that Cine edition, maybe I might go for that. That's why I will get rid of this, but at this moment I'm just keeping that because of that. The movie needs no introduction. It's absolutely spectacular. That's The Evil Dead. Next up is Army of Darkness. Now this is the Scream Factory, or Shout Factory one, and it's spectacular. It looks spectacular as well. I love this movie. I think it's so good. I like everything to do with The Evil Dead. I like, apart from the remake. I need to give it a rewatch, but I'm not too sure if I will ever like that. It is what it is for me. It's just not my cup of tea. And but this one here just looks really nice. Well, got loads of special features on, got all the cuts on here, so I can't wait to see this. This one would look stunning on a 4K. That's Army of Darkness. Next up is Ash versus the Evil Dead, the first series. This is amazing. This series is one of the best series I've ever seen on TV, and also the Debs loves it, which I thought she wouldn't be able to get away from it, but when she watched it, she says, I can't wait to watch it again. I'm thinking, wow, it's what's happened here. But I do think this is one of the best TV series you'll ever see, and it's the way that this thing should have went. I'm really glad they've done it, and they haven't ended it on one where I thought the remake, I wasn't that keen on it. So I'm glad that they kind of put it right for me, and they did this extra story, which is, it didn't really finish, but it kind of finished. But anyway, so that's season 1. This is season 2 with a lovely slipcover. I don't think there was ever a slipcover with season 1. But I think he's starting to go with for stupid money as well, for whatever reason. And but I was really pleased to get this one. And that being said, here's Ash vs Evil Dead, the complete 3rd season, and this is the end of the season. This I love the slipcase on here. These ones here, I could watch these all the time. The fact that they've got 3 seasons out of this extra story is just amazing. Some of it was directed by Sam Raimi, which you can tell. So that's a fitting end to the Evil Dead seasons series. Next up is The Evil Dead, the remake. Now, I need to get back to this and watch it again. I keep saying that, but I never do. I will watch it, but when I watched it, I must admit, I watched it and I thought, this didn't do anything for me. So my son, I said, do you want to watch The Evil Dead remake? He said, yeah. He put it on, he just said, I just laughed all the way through it. And not because there's no humour in it. He just laughed at it because he thought it was just stupid. He thought that everything about it just wasn't scary at all. I think we were trying to be scared a little bit, but we weren't. But anyway, a lot of people do like this one. I'm not trying to badmouth it or anything. It just didn't sort of work for me. I think my introduction to The Evil Dead has been that sort of slight humour and that slight Sam Raimi-esque versions of things. I think this one just strayed a little bit too far away from the original vision for me. So that's The Evil Dead remake. Next up is Event Horizon. This is such a brilliant movie. This I was so glad to get it on Blu-ray. I love it on 4K. It's a movie that doesn't get too much talked about, but this one here, this special collector's edition, looks really nice as well. That's Event Horizon. Next up is The Exorcist. Of course, you've got to have The Exorcist in your collection. This is the one with, all the different cuts on it. I think I might have 3 different cuts on it. And it's an absolute classic, and the one that every horror fan should have in their collection, The Exorcist. Next up is The Extraterrestrial. Now, I think I picked this up for £1, and it's got a slim case as well, and I wasn't expecting anything from this movie. I'll tell you what, this movie is such a good movie. And it is filmed in, I think it's filmed in something like 6K. And you can tell, mind, this movie is one of the best looking Blu-rays you'll ever see. If you do see it, I urge you to get it, because it's gory, It's funny. It's got a great story in it as well. Everything about this movie is so good. It's so just nobody talks about it. Nobody even knows it exists. I do urge anybody, if you just bump into this, usually you find it for £1, do get it because it's such a good movie. That's the Extraterrestrial. Now I've got the Final Destination, Final Destination 2, Final Destination 3, Final Destination, or The Final Destination 3D. Yes, I have got the glasses with it. And Final Destination 5. Lovely steelbook here. Probably one of the few steelbooks I do own. Now, for me, this series is great. Me and my wife love it. We've watched it a few times actually, and I would love 88 to do this in a box set. You know, when they put these box sets together, I think this would make an absolutely spectacular box set. How they do it with the I Know What You Did Last Summer box sets. So, but I have a good time with Final Destination, and I think that all movies for me work, and I like the way the whole thing goes in one huge arc. So that's the Final Destination series. So I'll have to split this into 2 sections actually, because I feel that the time's getting on a little bit, and I know if I did the whole lot in one go it'd be far too long. So I'll crack on with these and then I'll make part 2. So next up is Flatliners. That was one of the ones I saw in Poundland, but I didn't get it in Poundland. Got it in CX, and I thought, right, I do want to watch this one. It's another one that's on the list, but I haven't got around to it yet. I do remember watching this in the 90s and having a really good time with it. That's Flatliners. Next up is a real classic, From Dusk Till Dawn. This one I would love to see in 4K. I think it could make a good 4K, and I think it's got to come out in some kind of special edition pretty soon actually. So that's From Dusk Till Dawn. Next up is the Friday the 13th collection. Now this is the 8 movie collection, Friday the 13th Part 1 to Part 8, and you get a load of extras with this. This set here, it's very heavy actually. This is from the States. It's region free, and I think I honestly got this for about £25 posted. And nowadays it's hard, sometimes it's hard to get. Sometimes in CX it goes up to like £40–50, and then it's like £30. I don't know what they're doing with the prices with it, as they don't do with most of the prices are a little bit nuts to say the least. But I was so pleased to get this set, and of course what happened, the Scream Factory set came out, which I've got as well. But I'm going to keep this one mainly because it's just because I can put this on my 4K player and upgrade it. So some of the ones on here would be better quality than the Stroud Factory ones, slightly, but not all of them. So that's the Friday the 13th 8 movie collection. Next up is the Crystallized Memories. Now this is going to be coming out on 88 films very soon, and I've got to say, if you're a fan of Friday the 13th, you have got to see this. This is the best thing you will ever see when it comes to telling the whole story of Friday the 13th. It's just absolute, like, it's a masterpiece. Anybody who's a fan who wants to see this, wants to get the 88 one. This is the region it's a region A one, I think, but I'm sure it's multi-region, and it's got just everything you could ever want to know about Friday the 13th. It's an essential viewing as well. So that's Crystallized Memories. Next up is Forbidden Planet. It's funny I'm putting these sort of strange sci-fi movies into here, but I do think for me that they do sort of, although it's not a horror movie, I do tend to lump some sci-fi movies in with horror as well. So that's Forbidden Planet. Really good looking movie for the time it came out. Next up is The Gate. This is one of these Vestron collector series ones. I haven't got this one, I haven't watched it yet, sorry, but I do remember when I used to watch this a lot on video, on VHS, and I had a great time with it. These 2 kids, I think, it's one of those movies where 2 youngsters do something that open this gate to hell, and it's quite a good movie actually. It's not scary, but it's much more sort of scary than you would think like a kiddies movie would be. It's a bit like a scary Goonies, if you will. So that's The Gate. Next is Ghost Story. This is Second Sight. I released this one a long time ago actually, and funny enough, it's one of the ones that my good friend John Hall goes on about, and I haven't watched it. I do know that it's meant to be really good. I got it because of that fact, but I just haven't got around to watching it yet. But I do know it's highly regarded as a good horror film. That's Ghost Story. Next up is The Greasy Strangler. Now you might think this is more like comedy than a horror film. You'd probably be right actually, but the reason why I probably put in the horror section is because the fact that it's not gory, I would say. It's the fact of this this character here. He's kind of nude for most of it. but that's horrific in its own right. But there's a lot more to it than that. And yeah, wow. You don't forget watching the Greasy Strangler, but it's a great movie. It's very offbeat, very like Napoleon Dynamite-esque. So that's Greasy Strangler. Next up is Happy Death Day. I had a great time with this one. I watched this one on the review, on the recommendation of Movie Worm. I'll leave a link down to his channel down below. So Jordan was going on about this movie, and I thought, on his review, and I thought, hey, you know what it is? That sounds really good. It's kind of like Groundhog Day, like a horror Groundhog Day movie. And this movie is funny as well. It's really funny. It's about this woman who keeps getting killed all the time, and she's got to get killed to find out who killed her, if that makes sense. And it's really, really funny. And I think this is more like the horror type of this particular franchise. So Happy Death Day to You is more of a comedy movie. I think both of them are really good. Me and Deborah had a great time with this franchise, so I can highly recommend them. I know they're coming out in 4K actually, so I'll wait to see what they look like, because if they are a good upgrade, even though these do look quite good, I will pick them up. So that's Happy Death Day to You. Next up is Hereditary. This is such a good movie actually. I think this is my favourite movie by this director. I'm going to say is Ari Aster. Sometimes I get these new directors quite mixed up. I'm pretty sure it's him. And this is a great movie. It's got this great story about it. It takes a while to sort of get into it. So this young actress here, she's absolutely brilliant, and also Toni Collette is as well. She's brilliant in everything she does. So that's a highly recommended movie. I liked it much better than Midsommar. So that's Hereditary. Next up is Hobo with a Shotgun. This is absolutely brilliant. This is such like a throwback to 80s movies, although it was made quite recently. It stars the excellent Rutger Hauer. And this movie is really, really violent. It's one of those sort of ones that it's so violent, it's like an old school violence to it. But I just really, really enjoyed this movie. Enjoyed everything about it. Enjoyed the fact of how over the top it is. I like the thought of it being looking like an 80s type action movie. One that you would find in the video shop and tell your mates about. So that's Hobo with a Shotgun. Next is Halloween 2. Now this is an American Blu-ray, and the only reason I'm keeping it for is because it's got the documentary in Terrace in the Isles, which is a brilliant documentary. The picture quality in here isn't that good, if I'm honest. Of course, I've got the Shout Factory or Scream Factory 4K, and it looks magnificent. I love this movie, and I wanted to keep it just for that documentary thing, because really I don't really need it, but I'm keeping it because of that, because who knows when I want to watch Terror in the Isles documentary. So that's Halloween 2. Next up is Halloween 3. This was sent to me on subscriber mail by my good friend Keith from Euphoria Pictures. I'll leave a link to his channel down below. Now he sent this to me to say, look, I need you to see it, because I'd sort of blanked this movie since I saw the pictures. As you know, I keep talking about all the time the fact that I just was incensed by the fact that Michael Myers wasn't in this movie. Of course, we didn't know about it when it was the cinema. Nobody knew, so that's why we turned up. If we didn't know that, we probably wouldn't have went. But we might have went instead, well, we just treat it as a horror film. But now, with fresh eyes, all these years later, when Keith sent it to us, I says, right, I'm going to give a look for it. And I'll tell you what, I really had a really good time with it. So I want to thank Keith again for giving me, making me sort of shake me up a bit to say, look, you've got to see this movie. And I do trust Keith's judgment, so I went for it. And I haven't looked back. I've bought the 4K of it as well. So I am keeping the Blu-ray here, because I keep everything that anybody sends to me. But this is such a good version actually on Blu-ray, although it's hard to get in the UK on Blu-ray, which is a travesty all in itself. That's another story. But anyway, thanks again, Keith. So that's Halloween 3. Next up is a cracking little movie, The Hidden. This is on the Premium Collection, HMV, and this is really, really good. If you ever think of a movie to get, we get you 2 for 15s and you're kind of stuck for a one to get, do pick this one up. It's such a good movie. And I was wanting to get this from the States for a long time. Of course, when I saw this coming out in the UK, I thought I've got to get it. This is one of those ones that's kind of slips under the radar. That not a lot of people knew about when it came out. But it's one of these ones that was on your VHS, and it was like word of mouth. It wasn't one that jumped out to you on the shelves, but someone would say, get The Hidden out. So we used to get them out, and then these ones by word of mouth spread. But it kind of it kind of disappeared again. But I'm so glad that it's turned up on the HMV Premium Collection. That's The Hidden. Next up is The Host. This is from Bong Joon-ho. And I've yet to see it, but I do know a lot of people say it's a really good creature feature. And with anything that he touches, I'm in for. At least I want to try. So that's The Host. Next up has a really good throwback title. It is House at the End of the Street. Now that's a title you would imagine would be an instant video nasty, and if you said to somebody, oh, I've got a few house movies like Last House on the Left, House at the End of the Street would sound like one of those titles. This is a really good movie actually. It's got a few twists and turns which I did appreciate. I didn't expect, but I did think that, wow, I wasn't expecting this movie. I think I only bought it because of the actual title of it, and I was quite impressed by it actually. And it's one of the ones that it went right under the radar when it came out. But I do think that the two actors in here, Jennifer Lawrence and Matt Theroux, I think that they play really good parts. Now I have wanted the Debs to actually watch this, but she's like, no, I don't really want to watch it. But I think it's not that scary. But she would get a good, I think she would get a good time with this movie. So that's The House at the End of the Street. Next is a really good movie, The House of the Devil. Now this was really hard to get on Blu-ray, and then it became really easy to get, and then really hard to get. It's a strange movie that keeps on sort of like coming in and out of print, which I don't know why. This is like a new movie. I don't know when it was released, maybe 2014 or something like that. And it does make it look as if this movie is from the 70s or 80s, 80s actually. And you would think it's actually, the way they've done it is so good. It's probably set in the 80s, and it's not the most sort of goriest film, but I think for the fact of it's like this like intentional throwback to the 80s, it's one of these movies you've got to see for that reason. And I think that it's such a the best horror film of the year. They all say that, don't they? But I think it's such a good under the radar title as well. And if you ever see it cheap, do pounce on it. This movie is such a homage to the 80s, it's unreal. It's so watchable for that reason. That's The House of the Devil. Next up is The House That Jack Built. This is Lars von Trier, being Lars von Trier, and this is brutal as anything. Some of the things in here you can't imagine was ever filmed for a film, but I know that Lars von Trier's films are a bit like that. Some of the things in them are just wow. But I think this movie's really good. I was expecting to like it. It's got Bruno Ganz in there, who's one of my favourite actors of all time, who sadly died very recently. And Matt Dillon, who usually plays a good part, and he never used to sort of turn up in many decent movies, but he seems to always put a good performance in. He puts a great performance in here. But beware, this is really, really brutal and over the top. But for some reason, I quite enjoy it. I don't enjoy it for that. That sounds a bit bad, but I do enjoy this movie, and I'm quite really surprised at how far it decided to go over the top. I'm surprised it actually didn't get banned in this day and age. So that's The House That Jack Built. Next up is a movie that's one of my favourite movies from the VHS days. It is I Bought a Vampire Motorcycle. Yeah, one of the best titles you'll ever hear. This is sort of was a comedy, and it stars Michael Elphick and also Neil Morrissey. This movie is it's nuts. It's a British comedy, and it's just wacky and strange. I have a lot of nostalgic viewing on this one because it's just one of the ones I watch all the time, and I think I actually bought it on VHS. Then it sort of disappeared again when it came out in Blu-ray. I thought, yes, I'll have a bit of that. I don't even know. Screenbound who released this. I didn't know that, and they released some really good titles recently. But yeah, if you want a bit of sort of 80s daft humour, British humour, then I do suggest you get this, because I can't remember what the print looks like on this, but I think it looks pretty good, although it's not going to look exceptional because I think it was very low budget when it came out. That's I Bought a Vampire Motorcycle. So the last one in here is a classic. It is I Saw the Devil. Now this is the one that everyone talked about, so I thought, well, I've got to see it. When I bought it, I thought, wow, this is something else. This movie is, again, it is brutal. Really brutal actually, but it's the basic story. This is another one that I got a recommendation from Movie Whim. So the story is that this fella, I think he's a cop, his wife gets taken hostage, or she actually gets killed. That's right in the start of it, by a sort of serial killer. So what the cop does is he goes and persecutes the serial killer, and the serial killer is spending the movie trying to get away from the cop who's after him, who sort of more or less turns into a serial killer. Well, not really, but he's after this fella. And this role reversal is so good to watch. And he does persecute this bloke. The things he does to this fella is unbelievable. Well, quite rightly, if you think about it, if he's exacting revenge on him for what he did to his wife. So yeah, this film is such a good movie, so well shot as well, but really ultra brutal. But all the better for it, I think. Some movies, I think, can be so good because they really are brutal. Some movies are too brutal for their own good, but this one's just the right It is very bad, but it's the right levels for me. Okay, so anyway, that's part 1 done with. I'm going to go and film part 2 before me voice blows. Yeah, so I hope this isn't it's an hour there on here, but I hope it's going to be nowhere in here an hour when I put it in the cut. So thanks for watching. You take care, and I will see you on the next video. Cheers.